everyone, welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. I am Bonnie Krebs, creator of Watercolor, the Art Impressions Way. And this week is another spring project. I think you're really gonna like this one. It's really fun to do because we're actually using the wooden gate. So the wooden gate actually looks like this. It has a little arch on the top of it, but we're only gonna use this part. So we're gonna leave this arch off of it and we're gonna create a gate just with this section. So I think it's really fun to do things like that. It kind of stretches you a little bit, and think about how you can use these stamps, not just the obvious way, but there's so many different uses for them because they're stamps and we can ink the parts that we want. So in addition to the wooden gate, we're also gonna need another few stamps here. So we're going to use this little pot from the small watercolor container set. We're going to use two of the little birds from the bird bath set. So this little guy, this one and this one, so the two kind of facing each other. In the branches set, we're going to use this little one. In the new flower set, so this is flower set 2, we're going to use this little bunch of flowers. And then in the original flower set and foliage set, we're going to use the little daisy bunch and the vine and the small grass. Okay? So we are going to use those. We're going to put together this little project. I think you're really going to like it. And what, these little robins just kind of remind you of spring. So before we get into that, let me show you another version of this. So I put together another option. Here's that same fence, and instead of the little pot on top, I used the little bird houses. Added the little bunny to it, and you can see it's really very similar, but I want you to see that you can do multiple things with these. So here's just another option for you. Okay, so let's get on to our project. We're going to start out by inking that basic image. So that is going to be the gate. And because we're only using part of it, we're just going to ink this part down here. So I'm just using sepia, so sepia only. And I'm just inking the bottom part of the gate. So now we're going to set that little pot in front. So I'm going to take off some of this part of the gate here. And just going to stamp it in the middle of my paper. So just like this. And we don't want it to stamp in too dark. So this is actually about perfect. Don't worry about pressing really, really hard and getting those lines too dark because we're gonna stamp over the top of it and add some things to it. So we wanna keep it pretty light. So let's go ahead and add water to this now. It's always our second step. And we're going to pull this color out of the lines. So very carefully. Across the bottom, you can see where these support boards are on this gate. That's gonna pop it out as soon as we hit the water on that. And then just kind of follow these little boards down. And we're gonna add just a little bit of color to it towards the end, but here's a good start for us. Okay, so we've got this done. So let's go ahead and add the other elements to it. So let's add the little pots in. So I'm going to use my positioner because I want to be careful to get them in the right place. So I'm going to just ink this now in the sepia. And you can use any of these little pots that are in that little mini pot set. I just love these little stamps. They're so great. So stamp it in there, and now we can position it to make sure that we get it on top of this post. And you can tip it over a little bit, either way. Just kind of adds a little more interest when it's not exactly straight. You don't have to re-ink it, just huff on it a little bit and just put that pot right up there. Don't worry, if you've got a little extra lines in there, we're gonna wash that out and that's not gonna be an issue. Okay, so let's tuck this one in. Probably right about here. That looks good. Place our positioner back in here. And I'm going to ink it one more time. And just stamp it in there just like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull the color out of those lines and get this part started. Remember, these are rounded, so we're going to see that highlight in the center. Got to see that highlight in the center, even though the pot's small. Pull that color over where it's the darkest, and that would be on the sides, and drag it over to the center. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's go on to the next step. And let's go ahead and add some color now to those pots. So I've got some color on my palette. I've kind of got a mix of color. I've got a number 72 green on here. I've got some number 29, so Prussian blue. This is number 101, so that's the tropical. And let's just add a little bit of that brown. We're gonna need that later. Okay, so let's go ahead and add some color to this. And I'm just gonna use some of this number 72. And we're just gonna start putting this color on. You place the color just exactly like you pull the color out of the lines. And if you feel like it's getting too dark, pinch your brush off and go back over it again. This is going to take the majority of the moisture off of your brush, and it's going to just blend that color. So make sure that highlight is in there. It doesn't have to be huge, it just has to be there. You've just got to be able to see it. So let's take another bit of this color and let's do this one up here. And just pull it over. Remember, don't cross those lines. Stay inside those horizontal lines, those vertical lines. Just stay inside those lines. Don't want to cross over those. So we've got our little pots in there. Let's just go back now and darken the edges because we really want to see that these things are rounded. So again, where it's farthest from you, that's going to be the darkest. So on those edges. Okay, so let's add a little detail to it now. And I'm just going to pick up a little of this blue. So this is that Prussian blue. And I'm just going to make a little detail on here. Don't stress out about this kind of thing. This is not a huge thing. We're just showing the idea of it, that we've got a little detail on these pots. And that's about all we have to do. Okay, so let's go on to the next step, and that's to add our foliage in. So we're going to add our vine, and we're going to use that same number 72 green again. And I'm not inking the whole thing. I'm inking about probably 2/3 of it, and just get it in there several times. So I'm just going to come back in here, make sure I get this in here a few times. Just turn my paper. That kind of makes it a little bit easier. And then I'm going to just add some water to that and just dip my brush and pinch it off and just dab. And you can see why we don't want to ink this too dark, because we are stamping over the top of it. We don't really want to see those brown lines of the gate. We want this to look like it's growing over the top of that gate. And feel free to pull that color clear out. You're not restricted to the area of the stamp, so you can just pull that color way out. Okay, so let's go on. Let's add our little daisy to it, and we're going to ink this one with the Prussian blue. And I need just some small blooms, so I'm only going to ink just a few and just kind of tap it in here. And maybe just one more down in here. That looks pretty good. You can always come back and add more if you've got some, spaces where you need a little extra. You can just add a little bit more to it. You've got, some blue on your brush, so if you want to tap in a few little extra areas, you can do that too. It's kind of fun. Okay, so let's keep going. You can see I got a little too much water on here. I didn't pinch my brush off very well, so I've got a little too much water. I'm just going to kind of pick this up and let it dry and come back over it again. So I'm just picking this water up off of my paper, and we'll come back over it again as soon as it's dry. Okay, so let's keep going here. Let's add our flowers to the little pot. And we're going to do this with this little bundle of blooms here, and we're going to ink it in two colors. So the violet, which is the number 8, and then our number 72. And I'm just going to cover it with a little Post-it note, just to make sure that I'm not stamping over the top of my pot. So I just want to get a little Post-it note and just cover this You still want to be able to see where that pot is so that you kind of know where you're at and you don't go outside of that pot. So I just stamped that a couple of times, and now I'm just going to dab at it. Just dab. You can go outside of the lines. Of course, you've got a lot of ink on your brush, so you can go outside of the lines and then just pull this green part down. So cute. That looks good. Starting to take shape, so we are doing good here. Let's add that little branch in. This really adds a lot. I just love these little details. I think they just add a lot of interest. So we're just going to put one in like this, and maybe just another one in here like this. And there's no need to add any water to these. They're sort of accent pieces, so they kind of stand on their own. We don't need to do a lot with those. Okay, so let's add some grasses in now. We're gonna add some grasses into the bottom. So we are kind of cementing this little gate down to the ground, and we can add some around the little pot. Just as much of this as you want to do. And then just pull that color up and out. And on the bottom of this gate, you know, there's going to be a shadow under here. So we want to show that too. Okay, so let's come in and fix this little area right here. You can see that that's dry now, so I'm just going to ink my little stamp up again and just go right over the top of that and hit it with the water, and we are good to go. So now I'm going to just pull out some of this color from the gate. It adds a lot of dimension to these things when you do that. Just pull some of this color out, including, you know, where these little blooms are. You're gonna get a really soft look. And just drag this color out. Let's go ahead and add some water or some color now to the gate. So just a little bit of this blue. We can add some to the little hardware here. And I didn't quite get it stamped in perfectly, but you can see that doesn't matter. We're just showing the idea of it. And just add a little bit here and there. You know, you don't have to color everything in solid. It's so much better if you don't do that. And I know we just, you know, we want to do that. We want to color everything in line to line, and it's just, you're going to be so much happier with things if you can just kind of resist that. There's going to be a little shadow under this pot, so right where it's sitting. Going to see a little shadow under that. And especially under these little boards here, we're going to see some shadows under here. Don't be afraid to put these colors in. Okay, so let's add our foliage up into this little pot. I'm going to just add a little bit of the green, so the little grass. Add a little bit of this in, and then our vine. And we can just add as much of this in as we want to. So just, and I only inked a small part of it, so you can just ink as much as you want. And let's just put a little bit coming down here as well. Like it's kind of growing out of that pot. I love that about stamping, because there's, you know, rarely do you use the stamp as a whole, especially when it comes to the flowers and the foliage. You know, most of the time it's bits and pieces of things, and the more that you practice with these, the more ideas you have on how to use them. So they really are just so versatile. And you can just put whatever you want in these little pots. There's just, a billion options. Okay, that looks good. I think we are about ready to add our little birds to this. And they are so easy to do, but we are going to use the positioner. We want to make sure that we get them exactly in the right place. So I'm going to stamp them on my little shield here. So let's start with the little guy facing to the left, and we're going to ink him in the sepia. And just place him in the corner like that. You don't have to re-ink these. Once you've used them in the positioner, you don't have to re-ink them. Just huff on it and stamp it again. Don't press too hard, just an even pressure. You're just gonna be happier with how that turns out. Okay, let's do the other one. This little guy. And we're gonna ink him in the sepia as well. And we'll stamp him in the corner. And let's just put him right here. He's looking up at his little friend. And then huff on that and stamp it in there. Okay, so first step, always make sure those eyes are dark. And you can see what a difference that makes. Just adding the little point to that and the little beaks. You want to make sure that those details are really showing. The eyes, even on these tiny little characters, is so important. And if they're washed out, you've kind of lost the little personality of these little characters. So really important to do that. And just lightly pull the color out of the lines. So we're going to add just a little more color. This is sepia that I've added to my palette, and I'm just going to brush on a little bit more color. Make sure you leave the faces light. If you've watched any of my videos, I know I've said that a billion times, but it's so important to leave the faces light, even in these little ones. Okay, so let's add some of the number 6 brown. That's this color down here. So I've added some number 6 brown to my palette. It's almost a reddish brown, and it's just about the perfect color for these little robins. And just brush it onto their little chests. And you know, once that dries, you can make another pass if you want to. If you want to make them just a little bit darker, you can. So let's go ahead and add some sky in now. When you're doing the sky, make sure that you have enough water and your color is really washed out. And just brush it in. Keep it in that circle of your image. So think about the circle, and you don't want to go past that circle. And it's just the idea of it. Remember, it's just the idea. And you can blend and blend and blend. And pull some of this color out. You can see when I stamped this gate, I kind of lost the bottom boards of that. So if I want to, you know, I can come back in and just put these boards back in. So everything can be fixed. It really can. That's what I love about it. There's so many things I love about it, but that's one of them. Because most of the time I'm in a hurry and I don't get things stamped correctly, or I just don't have time. And that's okay. We can easily fix it. And let's just put a few of these details back in because I did mess up this hardware, but I don't think it matters. And we are about finished with our little project. I love it. It looks like spring to me. So the only thing left to do is to sign and date. And put it on a card or put it in a frame and give it away to someone. You're going to make their day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next week.